The whole idea about Aadhaar and about identification, I think one of the reasons it was really contested over the last 10 years was because it is an extremely powerful tool. What are you going to use it for?
Today, we are joined in the Newslaundry studio by Rahul Bhatia, the author of the Identity Project, The Unmaking of a Democracy. Many of you have already read much of Rahul's work. He's a journalist who has written many long-form pieces.
Writing this book was an act of curiosity because I was trying to understand a certain change that was overcoming this country. And I begin with a sort of betrayal. I was chatting with this person who designed the first identification project. And he said, Advani, for me, I think my jaw just dropped. Where do rights come in when you talk about handing over a project to a single person? At what point do you as a citizen say, I'm okay with not getting to decide?
The critical mass of the project was under UPA.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that that is the nature of power, that they want absolute control over the citizen?
People say the BJP is terrible. Let's vote in the Congress. And then if anybody has a brain, they'll remember what happened back then.
You have really spent a lot of time clearly with the victims of the riot, the Delhi riot, and their patients, which you have also asked in a few cases that don't you get sick of showing up and nothing happening in court.
In all these interviews, the thing that came out was a sense of being let down by people who should have stopped the violence, by people who instigated the violence. The shifting balance between the state and citizens, the change in that fundamental relationship, these are important questions. And I thought the best way to do it was to examine it through these legal proceedings.
So welcome to Newslaundry Interviews. Today we are joined in the Newslaundry studio by Rahul Bhatia, the author of the Identity Project, The Unmaking of a Democracy, which I have speed read about 75% of, Rahul. 25% is left. Many of you have already read much of Rahul's work. He's a journalist who has written many long-form pieces. This book, The Identity Project, Rahul, I'll just give a brief sankshipt mein to our audience so they have context. So the Identity Project is in 5 acts or chapters, not chapters, but 5 acts if you'd like, or 5 books as you've called it right now, which are The Aftermath, A New Country, Family Matters, Technical Difficulties, and Education. So Aftermath is basically on the Delhi riot of 2020, the violence in the universities and how students were beaten up by Delhi police and all that happened. Then A New Country, you speak about the new establishment. Yeah. So you got the Arya Samaj movement, Dayanand Saraswati, the RSS, etc.
Yeah.
And then comes Family Matters, which is the Parivar.
Yes.
The Sangh Parivar. Then Technical Difficulties, which is, as you have postulated, the entire Aadhaar program and the unique identification program was actually a brainchild of Advani, which we'll come to specifics of.
So when I looked at Aadhaar and saw that, researchers who were uncovering data leaks were then receiving notices from the UIDAI, and there were people who were critics of Aadhaar who were being blacklisted. And I use the word blacklist in a very loose way, but they were being uninvited from conferences. I wondered what was going on and why exactly this project was so important that any criticism of it or the discovery of any vulnerability was frowned upon. So I left work, started working on that. And
you have interviewed someone in the book who is I don't know if he still is, but was an executive at the Tata Consultancy Service. TCS had made a presentation out of, I think, some 7 or 8 to Mr. Advani, who's a speechwriter or PA also you met.
His PA.
His PA. And he said that, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're suggesting there is a connection between this grand identity, because that's also the name of the book, the whole Aadhaar, the UIDA project, the NRC, the persecution of the Muslim community, everyone falling in line which kind of gels well with the long-term vision of the RSS. Have you ever met anyone so efficient who can pull that off?
Towards the end of the fourth section, I meet an RSS functionary who essentially tells me that
you have really spent a lot of time clearly with the victims of the riot, the Delhi riot, and their patients, which you have also asked in a few cases that don't you get sick of showing up and nothing happening in court.
In all these interviews, the thing that came out was a sense of betrayal, a sense of being let down by people who should have stopped the violence, by people who instigated the violence, and then afterwards by society at large. But at this point, when I talk to them, actually there's one person that I'm in touch with more than anybody else, which is Nisar.
Nisar, right.
The central
followed that case.
Yes, who's, just to give you a little context, your reader's context, your viewer's context, is this man whose house was burnt down, his family was attacked, and then he escaped. And then instead of doing what many would consider the smart thing and just walking away and taking his compensation and getting on with life, said, no, I want justice. And then he returned to the courts over and over and over again at the cost of his business. So the whole idea about Aadhaar and about identification, I think one of the reasons it was really contested over the last 10 years was because it is an extremely powerful tool. What are you going to use it for? That's the question.
But wasn't the explicit or the at least stated objective was efficient delivery with minimum leakages, right? Which
Sure.
You've also, I think, quoted at some point in the book.
Yes.
Now, in a country like India, where so many are dependent on, state support or some sort of subsidies, or even if not subsidies, direct delivery of food, or any of the other benefits that are, healthcare. And leakage, of course, is a huge problem in India. Would you say that there is no merit in that being one of the reasons that you need something of the sort? Or, since you've studied this more than me, clearly, can you achieve that without having to go as far as Aadhaar?
So the question I have is, what else have you tried out? And what discussions have you had about it? And who was involved in those discussions? And really, if it's for welfare, there are people out there probably listening to it saying, yeah, well, everybody's got our data. Google's got our data. Don't you put your thumbprint here, there. The answer sometimes, I think, is, okay, if Google misuses my data, I have recourse in the form of government. If government misuses my data, where do I go?
While writing this book, what was, a learning that was the most unexpected for you?
What's been going on around us that hasn't really been covered very well in the papers,
Right.
that I suspect if we sort of dig a little deeper, we might be
find
disturbed by what we find when it comes to our institutions.
The critical mass of the project was under UPA.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that that is the nature of power, that they want absolute control over the citizen without really understanding how the next regime will use it? Or are you suggesting that the purpose was this all along?
I'm not even going to go there.